Wednesday of the month is falling on the 20th day of September, and yours truly, Lisa Webb, in studio again. And you know, you got a busy week. You got music trivia coming up on Friday. Mm-hmm. And then how's everything been for you?
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, we got music trivia. We'll just plug that real quick. LBB, Riverbend chapter. We have our music trivia on Friday, this Friday, and all those proceeds will go to benefit the local Alzheimer's Association right over here at Lovejoy. So if you haven't got your table, give us a shout out and we'll get you a table. But we will take people walking in. So come Friday. Yeah, individual, come Friday. If you don't have anything to do and you want to come out and have a good time, we have about 20 baskets for silent auction. We have a booze raffle of a lot of different types of barrel of booze things. So we have that if somebody wants to come and take a chance on that. So.
Well, it's really cool, and I think it's great that you guys do those events once a quarter to help benefit an organization. Mm-hmm. And you're always, talking about, helping others, and you really do in Bunker Hill and the Chamber and what you're doing with Little Black Book. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of resources that you help provide, and just like this segment, guys, coming up, it's all of September is Realtor Safety Month.
Correct.
And you sent me something about this a couple of weeks ago. And, when I looked at it, I went, well, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, then when we're talking here before we hit record, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't even have began to wrap my head around of how dangerous your job can be, meeting with different people in different locations and not knowing your environment, I'm sure, in a couple of instances. Right. Take me through this, a Realtor Safety Month, and how it's so important to really educate and raise awareness for this.
Sure. So there is several incidences that have happened over the past year. I did pull one recent activity that I'll share in a minute that just happened like 4 days ago. Wow. But Realtor Safety Month is bringing awareness to the local and national real estate agents on how to prepare when they're going out to show a house, how to prepare themselves when they're doing an open house, how to protect themselves, basically, when they go out and do their job. This is what we do every day. It is our job. And so our job needs to be as safe as we can possibly make it. So a few examples for people to think of whenever you go to a showing and you're a real estate agent and you're showing a house, you're not going to park in the driveway. Why? Because if you get there first and you park in the driveway, somebody who you're showing the house comes after, they will park behind you. Yep. So if they're not a legitimate buyer and you get in the house, you're stuck and you can't leave with your car. So if you cannot park on the road, you should back up into the driveway so at least you can get out quickly if you need to. Another thing to remember whenever you're an agent and you're going to show somebody a house is let them go in first. So as you know, CJ, when we went and looked at the house, I'm up there and I'm working the lockbox trying to get in. Generally, that person is right there behind you. Oh. So if you do the lockbox, you open the door, and then you let them go in. That way they're not behind you getting ready to push you into the home, and then you get stuck into the home because now you're blocked in by them. So those are just a few things that people need to think about whenever agents-wise, when they're out showing properties. One of the things that we do want to stress for people to do is if you're going to a vacant house and you're meeting somebody, get there first, walk around the outside first. Walk around and don't go in. Walk around, check all the windows, check all the back doors, check to see if there's any screens up, check activity before you go into that front door just to make sure that everything is secure.
Well, this is so important. I mean, to me, as someone that's younger, especially if you just got the job as a real estate agent, you just got your license, maybe you just got brought onto a firm or a brokerage. I don't know what's the phrase? Is it brokerage?
Brokerage.
Is it? I'm starting to pick some stuff up
You're
here.
good.
Well, you know, to me, if I'm that young person, I'm not thinking about X, Y, and Z. I want to go to my first listing and show my first showing and you know, really be a part of it. When you were first showing houses, when you first got it's your first one, you know, did any
I
of
was
that?
all over. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I was just going, you know. But I do have certain features that were in place. So like on my phone, I have something similar to the app 360. So my family can see where I'm at all times traveling. So I do have that type of protection. I did not necessarily, as a new agent, walk the house first.
Right.
I did not necessarily follow my people in. I went in first because I was thinking I need to protect them if there's somebody in the house. So I'm going to go in first, not thinking that these people may be out to do harm to me. And so, you know, letting them go in first is essential for safety purposes.
Well, and I mean, like you said, it's one of those things where it's not a rarity. I mean, in all honesty, this happens quite a bit. And, you know, last story 4 days ago hitting national news. I mean, that's just one, I'm sure, of a plethora of other situations, or even, you know, situations that don't escalate to something devastating, but enough to make you kind of question, enough to put you in fear.
Right.
And no one should be in fear when they're working, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're all, as realtors, we're in the public eye.
Right.
I mean, people can find me anywhere. You can Google my name, my cell phone number's out there, my website's out there, and that's the same with most full-time real estate agents. You know, their information's out there. So there's some key things that we want to stress to the newer agents. If you're doing an open house, do it with a partner. If you're going to show somebody a house for the first time, take a partner. I had a partner. I took my husband whenever we went and showed you your house for the first time.
So funny point to that too, because being in media, I hate to tell people this, we get a little bit sensitive about things, and I went, do I really look that intimidating? Because but you know, initially that was my thought was, man, maybe I just come off as not trustworthy. But then I thought about it for literally 2 seconds and went, makes total sense, because you've never had a meal with me, you don't know who I am, so anything could happen.
Yeah, so we encourage that. So we also encourage, if at all possible, to meet the person at your office first.
Like you did.
Yeah, and I did that with you too. So meet them at the office and get to know them at the office. And most people will understand the steps. If you explain it to them, they'll understand the steps. They also, it's very common for people to be asked for a copy of their driver's license, because in that way we can see that they're a legitimate person. And if you're not who you say you are, you're not willingly going to go, well, yeah, here's a picture of my driver's license, because the two aren't going to match.
Right.
So those are just some safety things that are easy to do, that doesn't cost you anything, and your life can be saved by just following a few of those stops. Now, there is other things that come into play that people can do as agents for their safety. They can carry. So I always encourage, if you are going to carry your weapon, that you go and you do your safety training and you get your proper license that you're supposed to. But that's very popular. A lot of agents, male or female, do carry whenever they go out. And you don't know that because it's a concealed state. So you don't know that they're carrying, but they do carry. They also carry tasers. You can, I have a small little pocket taser that, if I remember to charge it, it's in the car. It's like, oh, shoot, that's
that would be me. It would be the time I needed to.
Oh, it didn't work. But it's something that people aren't going to see it, and it's a safety. You know, it's to help protect you. Pepper spray. Pepper spray is another big one that people can purchase pepper spray and carry that with them. I mean, you can carry pepper spray small enough that it's in your hand, that you can spray that if you need to, enough to give you time to get out and run for help. And so those are just some things that are easy to do to protect yourself whenever you are out in the real estate world working with your customers.
Well, and I'm sure, just talking with you a couple of minutes about this, I'm sure that there's, organizations nationally that really try to educate us on this. I know that there's a National Board of Realtors, right, that we talked about last time. Do they have any, tips, any type of suggestions for this?
They do. So the National Association of Realtors, they actually have a whole safety section on the website. So if you're not a realtor, you can go to the National Association Realtors site and you will see safety awareness. You will see safety, how to have safe open houses, all kinds of things, little tips and tricks. And then also there was what stemmed local for us was back in, let me find her here, the Beverly Carter Foundation. You will find her on the internet. Beverly Carter, she was a real estate broker from Little Rock. And in 2014, she was kidnapped from a vacant rural home and later found buried in a shallow grave. So her family started the Beverly Carter Foundation, and that's what sort of stemmed whenever, to us locally, the safety awareness for September sort of, with me, relates back to Beverly Carter Foundation because they pushed that. September is Safety Awareness Month for Realtors. But what happened with this lady, she was showing a vacant house. Her husband knew where she was going. She said, "This is my last showing of the day," and she was showing a couple a vacant house. And the couple, it's really, if you have time to research her case and read it, they actually interviewed the people that murdered her in prison. Trying to get why.
Yeah.
Why would you do this? So she's a realtor. They think, like it's a misconception with everybody, realtors are very wealthy.
Right.
Realtors carry a lot of money. Realtors are just, you get perceived as this. So they were under the impression that Beverly Carter was a very wealthy real estate professional. So they originally kidnapped her for ransom. So when they kidnapped her for ransom and the ransom went south, then they didn't have in their minds any other recourse except to murder her, trying to eliminate any signs of things pointing back to them. So they killed her. And then they buried her in a shallow grave where she was later found. And so that's one of the misconceptions, that people think realtors are wealthy, realtors carry around a lot of money, realtors, that they drive all these fancy cars and so forth and so on. And that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
If somebody were to approach me now, I think maybe I have 50 cents on me. So it's like, they just think that they're by themselves, so they're easy prey. They make a lot of money, so the family will want to give a ransom, and they can walk away and be able to go on from there. So the Beverly Carter Foundation is what I'm more familiar with than some of these others, but they go around nationwide, the family does, and they speak and they talk about safety. They talk about how to do safe open houses, all kinds of stuff, and they raise money to go towards their foundation to bring awareness.
Well, and I'm on the Realtor website that you were just pointing out, and just in a couple of clicks, there's so many pieces of information, from brochures to actual courses, and they're actually, the National Board's doing a webinar on realtor safety here in a couple of days for this very topic.
Right.
And so it's one of those things for someone that's not in real estate, that doesn't live it like you do. I wouldn't think, was that really that big of an issue? You can spot them. Well, it is, because if there's this much effort and resource and awareness here, that means a lot more people than we want to admit or even think of have been affected in some way, shape, or form on this type of interaction. And for the family of Miss Carter to, sit there and pour all their hearts to making sure that, her awful murder isn't, being taken for granted,
Right.
but in a way to empower the real estate industry and making sure everyone's safe. That's incredible.
Yeah, they use it as a learning tool, and it's not that this doesn't just happen in low income areas. It doesn't just happen in a rural area. It happens in new construction areas. It happens in well-known communities. It happens, and we won't go into details, but it happened in our backyard.
Yes.
It happened over in Alton, where a agent from Godfrey, it happened there.
Yep.
We had it happen to an agent from Granite City, without going into details and naming names, but he went into a vacant house and he got beat up. So, it's just something I thought we need to bring awareness to the community and to other agents, if they're listening to this, that you need to do your homework. You need to do your due diligence. This is your job. This is what you do every day. What are you going to do to keep yourself safe?
Well, and on top of that, Lisa, for the families, like, Third Street Realty is woman-owned but family operated.
Right.
Just like your app of making sure, hey, you know where I'm going to be, just in case something happens. You can't get a hold of me. At least you know my location. You can ping me. You can do the SOS or whatever you need to do.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's good tips, too, for the family members of the realtor to maybe utilize those and instrument those in how they do their day-to-days.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to touch base with, it doesn't just happen to female.
Yeah.
It does happen to men as well. So in 2016, David, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so he's a real estate in investment and management. And what happened to him? I just had to, he was showing a house to somebody who was looking at buying, and he was murdered. He was shot to death in the house. Now, I know this could be sort of traumatic for some people to listen to, but he was shot in an abandoned property, and he was left there, and his murder is unsolved. So that was just in 2016. And I wanted to, bring...
I'm glad that you brought that, not to cut you off, because I was going to say with the first one, with Miss Carter, it makes, to me, I'm going, well, real estate agents a lot of times are primarily women, but to hear that, I mean, and that's the thing that's a huge takeaway, I think, for safety in general. You don't, listen, you can be 6'4" and 300 pounds, congratulations, but if somebody wants to hurt you, they're going to.
You can't go up against the gun.
No.
If somebody's going to shoot you, they're going to shoot you, whether you're 6 foot or 4 foot.
Exactly.
So, and that's the case with this gentleman. He was shot in this home. We have one other one that I was looking at, and this is another woman, and she was an agent, and she was at a home that was inside of a model home. So it was like looking at new construction they were going to build, and she was beaten and stabbed inside of that home. So somebody went there portraying as a buyer to build a new home, and she was beaten and stabbed. Now, that person was caught. Supposedly, they are still waiting. They were, in this state, they have the death penalty. So they were waiting, for that to take place. But just in glancing through some of these, I thought these were important for people to understand that these are not in areas that are less than desirable. This is your backyard. This is my backyard.
Well, and I'm sure there's people that watch us initially going, oh, well, that might happen in Venice, but it isn't happening over in, Bethalto.
Yes.
You never know.
Right, absolutely. And it does, Just recently, this young lady that I pulled her information this morning, this was reported back in September, on September 15th. Now, this lady is not local, but she was only 31, and she was a local real estate agent found, and she was murdered. And the only way that they found out about her was her phone activity.
Gotcha.
So people had been texting her, and she hadn't been responding. Her family didn't know exactly where she was, and she wasn't responding. But then whoever murdered her stole everything, then went to sell her phone, or however they do it, I don't know. And once they activated, once they powered that phone, then those text messages got delivered. And so then it one thing led to another, and they were able to then go to this girl's apartment where they found her a week later, according to this article. So, you know, it was just people do these things for different reasons, whether it be to try and get ransom money, whether they need drug money, or they just think somebody has cash on them.
Well, and just from what you said right there, Lisa, I mean, just naming off 4 different examples of why someone could do the things they're doing. That alone, in about a half a second to rattle those off, that means there's 7 others that if you give it another 2 seconds, there's even more reason. You know, there's even more opportunities for somebody that's in distress, that's going through a mental illness, that has X, Y, and Z going on.
Right.
And you could just be the person that was, you know, easiest to get to, because in your business, like you just said, your name's everywhere. It has to be, otherwise you aren't making any money. And it just goes back to it. I wanted to ask you something real quick and take a pause. This is from the CDN and NAR, the Realtor website. This is from residential realtors, and I thought this was really kind of alarming in a way. Most often reported feeling unsafe after receiving a threatening or inappropriate email, text messages, phone call, voicemail, and 33% of real estate agents, I don't know if you're included into this, feel threatened, feel unsafe after receiving these messages, because you don't know where they're coming from, but they know where you are.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so to relate to that, when I first became licensed, I received a text message from, I'm assuming it was a gentleman, because that was the picture I got.
Oh, no.
Of that text message. And I was very new to the industry, and I received this text message. And so I did take it to the police.
Yeah.
And they were very helpful. And, you know, there really wasn't a whole lot they could do, but they could try and track that phone number. But you feel violated. You feel like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you, I don't know you. Why, you know, why are you doing this, you know? And it's just, it is. And I can relate with that. You do feel threatened, because now you worry, you know, oh, now I got it. What if they're there? What if they know I'm going to go show this house? And what if they show up, you know?
Right. What if I'm the only one in the office while everyone's at lunch, and they know that I'm the only one there?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Going back to what you said on the residential side of things, or geographical side of things, of where these things happen, I mean, I'm looking right here from 14% to 24% female. This is a little bit of a split, but the area is very surprising, because I would have thought, looking at this rural area where there's nobody around, maybe the city, a metropolitan, 45% of these situations occurred in the suburban area.
Right.
That to me is just mind-blowing numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, and it goes to how many times people in your neighborhood right now, people are in the mindset where they don't want to be involved, you know, so they're not going to say anything.
Yep.
They don't want to be involved. They don't want to know. They're not going to come forward. And so things happen every day in front of people, and why not? It's suburbs is busy.
Yep.
Everybody's busy. Nobody's paying attention.
You're right.
And nobody's going to think twice about it until after it's done.
You hit it right on the head. I mean, 100% with that. And going back just to our conversation, I just saw some of these and thought, wow, that's really some fascinating numbers. You were talking about some apps, some things that maybe people can use that are maybe new to the real estate game. Maybe you've done it for 40 years and are going, okay, this is starting to worry me a bit. I hope that's not the case. Is there some technology, some things that you can recommend or that they do?
So for our local agents that belong to our board here locally, we do have an app called Forewarn.
Okay.
The Forewarn app goes based on a person's name and their telephone number. And so we put that person in this system, and it pulls up names that match as closely as what you put in, and then it does give you a history about them. Now, it is not 100%. They say use this as your own, you know, it's information, but it will pull up if you have a person that's been convicted of some type of felony. They state that. They state if they've had sex offending, if they've had this or if they've had that. Again, it's not stating that that's that person 100%, because you don't have the ID, but you have a name and a phone number. However, if you pull up a person John Smith, and you pull him up, and he has all of these different felony counts, and he has that he was, in jail for domestic violence and things like that, you're going to think twice about going somewhere without having somebody with you. You may say, can you come with me? Because we've done that a few times.
Is that how you handle it? Do you ever tell somebody no?
No. Well, I rule out people ahead of time, but a new agent may not know that. A new agent may not know, to ask key questions about maybe their pre-approval or maybe about what they're looking for, just some key things. And you can hear it in people's voices, but you have to be in tune to that. Yeah. And as a new agent, though, you're not in tune because you're wanting to go. Right. You're excited.
You got to change the world here.
You're changing the world. You're excited. You want to go. So you just have to take a step back. Key takeaway, listen to your gut. Yeah. Your gut is right. Your gut will tell you something just isn't right. I'm not going to go, or I'm going to call them and change the appointment. If they get mad because you're changing the appointment, they probably aren't real to begin with.
They had some predetermined notion going.
Yeah, most people will be like, okay, I get it. I understand. That won't work with your schedule. Let's do this. We've done that a few times to where one of my agents was like, I'm going to go meet this person, but I'm really iffy. And I'm like, well, why don't you call them and just tell them, what, we can't show you this property unless we have your pre-approval first in the office. Yeah. Send it in. Let's take a look at it first because we just need to make sure that this fits you. And the person got very defensive and they're like, well, I'm just not going to go see it. Okay. And then we're like, that's fine. Yep. That's worth saving our lives, saving the agent's life, going, they may not be on the up and up.
And that's really just so fascinating. And I mean, it's some of those things that, at the time, like you said, you're young or maybe you're just new to the game and you want to, make the most out of what you're doing. But safety comes first always, Mm-hmm. And now, absolutely. With that being said, I don't know how much more we have to go in our packet here.
Oh, you're fine.
But we were talking the last time, Lisa, about Grover and what his job entails. Mm-hmm. And to me, number one, Grover, I don't know if we can take this the right way or wrong way, but I was almost ready to get Grover in here and talking about some of these walk-ins.
I tried.
Oh, come on. We're going to get you soon. It's coming.
I told him, I said, I need the pop to come in with the mom and pop. He goes, he was in Edwardsville, then he was in Granite, and then he had to go to Wood River, and then he was in Alton. Wow. So he couldn't make it in today. But I did want to touch base on that a little bit because what he does for a living, he's sort of a field tech, not only for solo field preservation, which is his business, but also for Third Street Realty. So his job is to go in for the banks and for me to check the homes and vacant homes and make sure that they're still secure and things like that. And so then what happens with that, he's had several instances between Alton and Granite and Troy and all the way to Vandalia where he's come across where somebody has been in the house. So when he goes, and at first whenever he used to do this, I would be with him and I would be like, oh my God, what are you doing? So he would walk around the house and then he would go and unlock because we have keys to get in, and then he starts yelling. He's like, this is Grover, banging and hitting things, Grover with the bank. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
You're putting your head down
and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the neighbors are gonna think you're a loony. Until he called me one day and said that he was very shaken up, and I could tell that he was shaken up, and he went in the front door and heard the door in the back swing and go and then close. So he comes running out the front, and then whenever he comes around, he sees this guy running at him, and of course he had to tell him to stop and draw and say hold it, stop, and he had to call 911, the police. But he was very emotional about it because this person was running at him. Right. And so we don't know, what's this person on? Are they on anything? Yep. Are they fearing for their life? Are they going to not stop? Are they going to pull out a gun? So he called the police department, and at this time it was Alton, and I do want to give a shout out to them. They are very, very supportive of any real estate person, as far as I'm aware of, and any field tech person that if we call and say, hey, we think maybe somebody might be in the house, can you come and clear it? We don't call 911 for that. We call the non-emergency, and they come and they will clear it for us. So kudos to them. For any police department that have done that for us, that's to help protect us.
Right.
And they will do that. But when they came, they pulled the suspect, and they went through his belongings, and they did not find a gun, but they did find a box of gun shells. So we don't know where the gun was at. So, it could have been a totally different circumstance as far as where things could be with Grover and his life.
Absolutely.
This person could have pulled a gun and they could have shot. And he's had that happen several times, to where when homes are vacant, people are going to be attracted to them. It doesn't matter, though, what area it's in. It could be a very nice area, like we saw with our numbers. It could be a very nice vacant suburb home where people aren't going to be paying attention to somebody coming and going. And before you know it, they're there, and you're going to have to figure out how to get that person removed, or they are going to do harm whenever you come in. Now, Grover did not press charges against this person. He did ask the police to remove them and reassure this person to them that it's trespassing, do not return.
Right.
It could, go different, but this goes on in our neighborhood, and your neighbors need to be aware of their surroundings. Homeowners need to be aware, and the people in our industry, our field techs and our agents, they need to be aware at all times of what's going on around them.
Well, you're right, and it's one of those things where, I'm sorry, at the end of the day, you got to protect yourself. I feel bad that you're in distress or something's happening, but I got a family to take care of. I got, something. I got something to do here. And it's all about keeping yourself safe. I wanted to ask you this. I stumbled upon this. And before we move on here, by the way, remember how and we'll see if we can talk for 30 minutes.
Maybe.
In this area, there's so many patching spots with cell phone service.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, how do you kind of combat that? Because in the Macoupin County areas and different spots, is there any bit of advice you can give to somebody that's going into that kind of wonky zone?
You just have to remember, because there is several places where it's just a drop zone, where you don't get anything, and so in that instance, you have to take it upon yourself to do your vetting before you go, to take your pepper spray, your charged taser, whatever the case is.
A partner.
Take that with you. If you know you're going into an area that you may not be able to pick up and call 911, or if your cell phone doesn't pick up, then that means your Life 360 device or whatever,
it's not going to work.
It may not work. So then people aren't going to know where you're at. So you, in those areas, if you're going there, you need to make sure that you do your due diligence, park appropriately. Make sure that if you're uneasy with a person and you're out there and it's already too late because you're there, let them go into the house.
Yep.
You don't need to go in. They don't know that you don't have to go in. You go look at the house, you come back out, and you tell me what you think. If your gut's telling you, I'm not too sure about this, then you let them go in.
Yep.
And then they come back out, and then you stay by your car.
Yeah.
That way you know that if something goes south, you at least have a fighting chance to get away, because once you go into that house, then it's
you never know.
You never know. Yeah.
Well, and there's so many things. It is kind of interesting. Kind of a correlating thing is when I had my company before I sold it years ago. We'd had people, and a couple of folks would help me out, but normally I'd go into houses, and there was one time someone called for a huge order for delivery from one of our clients, and they changed the address twice. And CJ didn't understand that it's okay to say no. I have never, it was a scary situation. And it's one of those where I just keep thinking about, for all the Lisa Webbs out there that are experienced and have done this, and they know there's a lot of people that were my age or younger or just ready to take the world, and it's just all about being safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is such a great conversation. I loved it.
Well, and I wanted to touch base a little bit. I know we talked about my car. You've seen my car. So my car, if you see Lisa Webb driving around, my car is fully wrapped.
If you don't, I do not want you on the road.
It's fully wrapped, and it has my name on it.
Yeah.
It has my phone number, which you can find anywhere. So it's not like it's out there and it's just on my car. My phone number is anywhere. So you can get into a heated conversation between professionals as far as why having a car wrapped or not is a good or a bad idea.
Is that
It is a thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that stand behind. Absolutely, it's a safety issue. You shouldn't have your information on your car because people know who you are, where you're at, so forth and so on.
Right.
But the reasoning for Lisa Webb why I do it is because when I go to a property, my car, people know I'm there.
Yep.
So say I am at a vacant house and I'm showing it and something happens to me and I get hurt, whatever the case is, my car is still sitting there. If it's there for 2 hours, it's there for 10 hours, it's there for 24 hours. Eventually, somebody's going to go, why is that car still sitting there? Because it's clearly not a person that lives there.
Right.
And then they can reach out and say, this car has been here, something's wrong. That's why I do it.
Well, and we were talking before the segment, and it makes sense because if I see a little Hyundai over there, well, that's Johnny coming in to visit or whoever. It's somebody that they're friends with.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking and, okay, that lady's car hasn't left, and I'm a nosy person to begin with, so number one, I'm going to go, I wonder what's going on over there.
The car stands out. So it's not like it's going to look like somebody else's and it's going to be sitting there. So
can I ask you about this scam? I know that we said we weren't going to do this, but I gotta. We're over, but I don't care. I mean, this was so important, and I hope that anyone that's watching this and for the consumer, if you think maybe it's because your real estate agent's a jerk or doesn't want to be, work with you, maybe it's not that.
So let's talk about the scam here a little bit. So especially for the consumer out there, especially for a person that I got this phone call. And it's not uncommon for me to get phone calls from people out of state. Right. I have a lot of clients out of state. And this person, I couldn't really understand clearly because it was scratchy, the phone call, which is common nowadays with our cell service. But he told me that he had got my name from somebody, and I couldn't understand who he said. And they said I did a good job. And he had 5 acres in Edwardsville that he wanted me to look at and then consider listing. Very common. No red flags, nothing to stand out and go, I don't know. And so he said, he gave me the address, and I pulled everything up in the tax records, and I said, I couldn't understand him really clearly, so I said, let's do this. You email me. Yeah. Email me all the information so I can verify. So if you are a new agent, you're going to remember you have to verify everything before you walk out that door. You do your due diligence first before you go anywhere. So I pulled up the tax records and looked at everything matched. Yeah, this makes sense. Okay, great. Happy to help. Selling 5 acres in Edwardsville, great. It'd be great. And so then I look at the GIS map. So those of you that don't know, that's the aerial that you see of the county, and it shows 5 acres. So I, in my mind, made notice of what's around there. So there should be a house here, and then 5 acres, and then a house back here. So he calls and wants to know if I can list it. And I said, I can, however, I need to go look at it. Mm-hmm. So if you're a new agent, you are not going to just list something based off of this person emailing you and calling you. You're going to go look. Right. So I go and I look, and I travel to Edwardsville, and you think, oh, it's Edwardsville. There's no scam here. It's all good, right? Everybody's misconception.
Nice area.
Nice area, absolutely. And so I go back and go back to this acreage, and I stop at the house on the corner that I know is supposed to be there. And I'm like, can you tell me where such and so address is? And they're like, well, I think it's over here. So then I turn and I go down the road. Well, there's a house there.
Uh-oh.
So I pull in, and I'm sitting there, and it's a new build, and it's a big house, and it has, a big fence around it, and I can tell that the person that built this house is pretty private. So I'm like, something doesn't seem right. Something's off.
Right.
And so then I went to this other house, and I got out. And again, this goes back to probably not the safest thing I should have been doing, but I didn't want to trespass onto this person's property because there's a house there. And according to county records, there's not supposed to be a house there. So I knocked on the door, and I knew this house was supposed to be there because I'd seen it in the map. And a young lady came to the door, and I introduced myself and told her I had the papers. I had the county papers with me just in case anybody questioned. I had the papers,
right.
So I can say this is what I'm looking for. And she didn't live there. Her parents did. So her mom called me when she got home. And I said, well, thank you for calling me back. I just had some concerns because I had the owner reach out to me. They live out of state, and they wanted to have me sell their acreage because they want to go ahead and sell it off. And she's like, that's really strange because the owners just built that house at the end of the summer, and they're already wanting to sell. I'm like, well, that's what they told me. I have not heard of a house being built, but they said that they were wanting to sell, and this is what I looked at. Now, the concern I had, and I told her when I talked to your daughter, according to county, there's no house. According to being out there, there is now a house. And she said, well, I know who the owners are. And I gave her the name, and she says, yeah, that's who they are. And I said, well, I don't know, can you, she goes, I know, I have their phone number. And I said, I tell you what, you call them. Since you know them, you call the owners and let them know who I am, and please have them call me.
Yeah.
Because then I can compare the numbers.
Right.
So if they call me, then this is going to match who called me originally. And so the owner did call me not very long after that and introduced herself, and she said, we are not selling, and I don't know who this person is that contacted you. We just built this house. Wow. And I said, well, I appreciate you calling me back. Somebody was trying to scam, trying to get me to list your acreage, which I very well could have. If there was no house there, I very well could have listed 5 acres, not knowing that this person was not who they said they were. But since these people built a house, it drew some flags. But the person talked to me on the phone. They told me the proper name of who owned it, and they gave me the parcel number. And I could have easily listed, because their county address was still out of state.
Oh.
So if there wasn't a house there, I could have very well had them sign electronically, and I could have very well put a sign in that yard and tried to sell somebody else's property. So consumers beware. There's scammers out there all over the place. Scammers will pull listings and try and get people to rent them. Scammers will try and get people to buy things and they really can't afford it. Scammers try and get people a loan so they can do harm. So we just wanted this episode to have people be aware of their surroundings, their people at all times, and safety first. Be safe, be smart, be proactive, and be prepared.
Absolutely. I learned so much on this, and every time I go, Lisa, don't worry, we're not going to talk for this long. Well, we are already at the top of the hour on this 20th day of September. Lisa Webb, thank you so much. Got any listings?
I have 2 coming up, active later today. One's not local, one's in Vandalia, and one's in Macomb. They both, however, would make great investment properties.
There you go.
So Macomb is where Western University is. So if you're an investor and you want to rent to some college students, there's an opportunity there. Vandalia, it's a cute little 3-bedroom bank foreclosure, but it's ready to go. It does need some minor renovations, but they'll be ready.
That's awesome. Lisa Webb, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
And if you need more information, thirdstreetrealty.com. That is the website for yours truly over there. I had a lot of fun today.
Good, I'm glad.
We're coming up on top of the hour. We'll take a quick break. Third on Third with Lisa Webb, but more of our daily show continues right after this in downtown Alton.